a woman chooses to cover herself, cover her hair, cover her body, her neck, and the whole of her body, people would now consider her to just be a raghead that needs liberating. Nowadays, people don't even ask your name because they have already given it to you. We have already given people labels and names. If you meet someone new, what you're supposed to do is to ask them their names. Because if you know a person's name, that gives you the person's ancestry, community, books, history, society, and even the person's identity. But we don't do that now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the show Deen and Dunya. I am Rahma Mustafa Ghani, and this is a program where we talk about issues that we see around, issues that our imams, our parents, even our youth don't find it comfortable to talk about them. So we try to bring these issues onto the table and find solutions to them. Today we have for you an interesting topic, which is Dear Hijabis. I am calling the attention of our sisters. And I have with me in the studio a special guest, Mrs. Aishat Adaviruku, which is the founder of Master Coach Coaching and Mentoring Hub. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Then I have my co-host, Habiba Abdullahi. Assalamu alaikum. So, dear hijabis, you see, these days, there was a time when I was just seated and then something came to my mind. When I go to work or any public place, I see our sisters coming to pray and they'll be struggling to get something else to cover themselves, struggling to get hijab or any other thing. And I'll be like, if you come to pray and you're looking for these things, it should tell you something. Maybe your body is not fully covered, or your cloth is revealing, or your neck is not covered. It means you cannot stand in front of Allah like that and pray. It means at the first place, you're not even supposed to go out with that type of clothing. So how do we get there?
Okay. You mentioned our sense of identity. As Muslim women, our sense of identity of how we should dress has come straight from the Quran, where we are reminded when Allah mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ that, O Prophet, tell your wives and your daughters and the believing women to draw their cloaks over themselves so they would be recognized and not molested.
Yeah.
So this is the standard I know and I practice. And it gives me comfort as an individual to pray, to be recognized as a Muslim, and Alhamdulillah, for all the years that I have chosen to be covered like this, it has brought me prestige, it has brought me honor, it has brought me safety. Alhamdulillah. There is this hadith, Qudsi, where it was mentioned that on the day of judgment, Allah would ask a scholar, a warrior, and a wealthy man, for why did you teach? For why did you spend your wealth? For why did you die in battle? And they will say, yeah, Allah, we did it for you. And Allah would say, you lied. You did it so that you'll be seen to be doing it. So there is a clear divide between being, professing Islam and actually practicing Islam.
And it's all about the intention, yeah?
It's all the crux is, are you doing it with the right intention? So you have to pay attention with living your life on purpose. So living your life, your career, your finances, your health, taking care of them should be towards fulfilling your purpose on earth, which is to worship Allah. So you do whatever you're doing in alignment with the right intention. So if you go to work daily with the intention to use that to advance your worship of Allah, you gain the reward for that. If you go there just, to be seen to be doing it or to gain fame and all of that, you get the reward for that. So your sense of spirituality must be on your purpose for being here. And you also have to have the right amount of fun. Your social life has to be balanced.
Yeah.
Where, as Muslims, we should have a sense of community. Because scholars have said that when it comes to child upbringing, it doesn't stop with only the family. It starts from reparenting the self and the family, and also the community. So that's one of the reasons I do what I do, for sensitization, to give back to community where I live. And today the world is a global village. We're all global neighbors. Yes. So now you have your social life. You should play, because if you don't play, you don't renew your spirits to work or to worship.
True.
And this is Islam. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ practiced.
so
This is what the Sahabas practiced.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Then let me conclude the wheel of life. You have health, you have to take care of your health. You have your finances, you have to do it in a Sharia compliant manner. You have your personal development, you have to be active in learning. Because you learn from cradle to
Death.
when you return to Allah. Yeah. Then you have your career. Yeah, you have your career, and then you have your family relationships, and your other interpersonal relationships are very important. You have to understand what the requirements are for you in all these segments, and to do them well, to have a sense of balance and renewal.
I can strongly relate to that. Just as we were discussing when we were talking about intentions, even in the hadith that said, "Innama al-a'malu bin-niyyat," really deeds are done upon the intention. But sometimes the hijab is the popular conception is that there's a popular notion of stereotyping that comes into society where they think if you don't look a certain kind of way, you might not be represented or you might not be seen, as they say it. So like take for example in workplaces, if you dress in a hijab way, they feel as if it's either you don't know the work well or you're not that exposed, you understand that? And then at the same time, Islam has put a landmark on how we could live coexist and even embrace all these pleasures. Take for example, I can relate to Surah Al-Ahzab that said, okay, tell your women to cover their outer garment, you understand? And then covering outer garments, the notion of the hijab, that okay, the hijab is make sure you're covering all parts of your body, but there is a misconception that the hijab has to be the thing we saw, the normal thing that everybody knows. But people need to understand that okay, hijab means covering your body. Nowhere, everywhere as a woman is an aura. And then who says Islam cannot be fancy? Modesty is everything. I think it boosts your confidence, it's self-respect, you understand how people even address you. You like the popular saying, dress the way you want to be addressed. You know?
Like you mentioned that if you wear the hijab, they feel like you cannot present some people, or like cannot present Islam. And they feel like, just like I mentioned, if you wear the hijab, it's like you're just a rackhead. Like this veil that is covering your head is covering your brain and everything, so you cannot be smart enough.
You're not the modern woman.
Exactly, and so they can shun your idea, they cannot take anything from you.
They don't even ask you.
And I remember, like even in Islamic history, when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu actually started all the idea of administrations, he actually chose a woman called Shifa bint Abdullah to overlook the markets and judge amongst people. And so one day when he prayed, so normally after prayer he addresses people. So before the prayer time, a young man met him and he was like, please address the Muslim Ummah because it's difficult for us now to get married. The dowry is so high. Please tell them to reduce it. So after prayer, Umar radiallahu anhu now addressed the Ummah and he was like, from now on, the dowry is supposed to be so amount. And if it is more than that, I'm going to take the part that is higher to put it in the state treasury, to put it in Baitul Mal. So Shifa heard about it and everybody was confused, like what's going on? So now she said, Ya Amirul Mu'mineen, have you forgotten the saying of Allah in Surah An-Nisa? وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمْ اسْتِبْدَالَ الزَّوْجٍ مَكَانَ الزَّوْجٍ وَآتَيْتُمْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ قِنْطَارًا فَلَا تَأْخُذُوا مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. She said, Allah said, if you want to get married or you want to replace a wife with another and you give them something as dowry, you shouldn't take anything from it. Because if you take it, it means it is injustice. So Omar now kept quiet for a moment and then he said, Imra'atun asabat wa rajulun akhta. That a man is now wrong and a woman is right. So he said, I've withdrawn whatever I said. So it means even then they used to have voice, they talk. The Prophet ﷺ gives time to women, express themselves, judge, tell them the things that comes in the Quran and all that. But nowadays, people feel like if you're a Muslim woman that is covered, you're never smart enough.
Okay, so very valid points. And my input is this. When it comes to how people view Muslim women in that actually cover, or Muslim women that don't cover, with the kind of maybe groupings like she mentioned. I was a banker for more than 10 years, and when I went into banking, I was already using the hijab, and I continued to do that. And I faced some opposition. Facing the opposition never stopped me, even up to the level of my regional manager then. And my manager defended me in front of him. So that's why I said I've always enjoyed prestige with this. I've always had people who were there to support me. And through my time in banking, I always got appointed to positions where I was in leadership. So I was able to make vital contributions to the kind of path, carve new paths, influence things as a woman. Yes, as a woman. So it will depend a lot on the environment and what's at play in that environment. If it's a trial for that woman, that she's being challenged or being looked at some way, I would say that if you're a Muslim woman using the hijab right now and you're faced with this kind of opposition, please, that should not deter you. That should not make you say that I'm going to remove my hijab so that I may be honored or given prestige, or my views would be accepted. I would say that you should persevere, and with perseverance would come victory for you. I have done this, it has worked for me. A lot of my sisters has done it, it has worked for them. So please keep at it. Try to be kind, be nice, and be assertive. Sometimes being passive, there is a difference between being passive, aggressive, and assertive. If you remember the Jega and Urubebe, encounter, you can see that Jega was assertive, but he was not aggressive. So there is a difference between a feeling and a behavior. So when you have a feeling of anger, let's say, the behavior can be calm. Jega may have been angered, but he was calm. So as Muslim women, we can speak out, be assertive, and be calm with enough evidences to convince whoever is challenging our position. Like what Sister Rahma related with Amirul Mu'minin and the lady during, his judgment. Yes, during the dowry, intervention. So the fact is, we would face opposition sometimes. It's a trial, but we owe it to ourselves to continue to do our path with diffusing some of those wrong thoughts. We need to be recognized as Muslim women, and we can do this. We can represent Islam. And on the other hand, where we see some Muslim women and maybe they're not properly dressed, and we feel that they're not holy enough, we should try to do nasiha for them and bring them close so that they can actually copy what we are doing. Because we've seen cycles where you bring people in and then you get, if you are firm, it's hard for them to influence you. So ensure you're firm, your convictions are firm, and then you can bring them in and influence them. If you feel that you can do it. If not, you can refer them to groups that can actually influence them. And this has been done, this has been practiced, this is going to be done in the future, it's going to be practiced in the future. We need to shine the light brighter for ourselves. It is a trial, and we can do something about it. We can persevere and bring those opposing us to see the truth in what we do.
Yeah, dear viewers, it's still the show Deen and Dunya, and the topic is Dear Hijabis. We'll now take a break and we'll be back soon. Stay tuned.